Have you ever wondered why you or your loved ones can be so good in certain skills and then in other areas really struggle? Maybe an organization or starting task, and you wonder well, how come I'm so good in this area or he or she is so good in these areas, but they struggle in flexibility or time management? We're going to talk all about executive functioning skills today and how you can use this great tool to understand yourself and your family so much better. Hey friend, if the daily demands of life leave you exhausted and burnt out with no time for yourself, are you feeling alone in your relationship and hopeless of life ever changing? Hey, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Christina, married 18 years to my neurodiverse husband and mom of 3 neurodiverse kids. Welcome to the Neurodiverse Family Life Podcast, where we are reclaiming self-care for moms while still being a loving wife and mother. Get ready to begin your self-care journey. Grab your latte planner as you listen in and take small steps towards a healthier you. Hello, friend. Thank you for carving out this time so you and I could chat. I'm imagining that you are talking back with me as I share different stories. If you are new, I encourage you to sign up for my email list to get my bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, little newsletter that shares about behind the scenes stories and events and a little bit more of a personal connection. And if you've been here for a while and if you have been thinking, I think it's time now for me to focus on myself, go to my website, christinamariepaperi.com. It'll be in the show notes. You will see there is a tab that says self-care coaching. Click on that and you can find out more information. And I would love to walk you through and help you prioritize yourself as you still do those very vital roles of being a wife and a mother and all the other plates that you're spinning and trying to keep balanced or you're juggling as you are going on in life. Today, I am really excited on our topic. A friend of mine actually briefly mentioned about executive functioning, and I thought, oh my goodness, why have I not shared that with you guys before? Because I know some of you have may not heard that term before, executive functioning, I'm going to give you a quick overview. Executive functioning skills refers to our ability for our mind to process all the different actions that we need to do. Things that require our focus, what we need to do to manage our task, regulate our emotions, the ability for self-control, flexibility, memory, all these different things that we execute in our brain. That's called executive functioning skills. And this is what I love about this topic so much. When a mom or as a mom and wife, you are becoming aware that there are things going on in your kids and in your spouse, diagnosis can be a really big topic and a little bit scary. I find that just talking about executive functioning skills and diving into that is a great way to have no nomenclature, titles, labels in the process, but really looking at how your loved one's brains work, how your brain works. This is great data because this is nothing about a diagnosis. It's all about what executive function skills are you or your family members stronger in and weaker in. And there is always something that everyone is weak in some areas. And when there is neurodiversity, there may be additional challenges, but oftentimes, not always, but sometimes there can be great strengths in executive functioning skills. And when you begin realizing what the strengths are, sometimes you can use those strengths to help with the ones that are not as strong. But this is such a leveling field because especially if there is a stigma of, oh, I'm like this, I have these challenges. When you do this process as a family, it changes things. There's this realization of, hey, this is where I'm weak in my executive functioning skills, and this is where you're strong in. And now we're talking in just very detailed everyday life choices and actions versus neurotypical, holistic, or neurodiverse, autistic, ADHD. If there is that stigma, this process really helps with that conversation. So I'm going to refer to the books I first used when I came across executive functioning skills. I am not saying they're the absolute best, but these are the ones that I found really gave me the direction I needed many, many years ago. And the book is Smart But Scattered by Dr. Dr. Peg Dawson and Dr. Ridge Guerre. Now they have a second edition, and I suggest getting that one, and I'll have a link in the show notes. But what their premise of their book is that they have an explanation of what these different executive function skills are. And there can be agreement and disagreement depending upon who you work with, but a basic understanding of what these skills are, what they mean and look like, and how does it look like in someone who is in first grade and someone who is in middle school, and even adult examples. Now, this is why I'm excited to talk to you guys, because what I thought was the most profound part of the book was the questionnaires they have. They have a questionnaire for parents on what are their executive functioning skills, their strengths, and their areas to grow in. But also they have age-appropriate questionnaires for preschool and kindergarten, first to third grade, going into fourth into sixth, and in middle school. I believe that the adult book, The Smart But Scattered Guide to Success, is what is more appropriate for those who are going into high school. But that questionnaire was gold. I remember the first time I grabbed one of my bullet journals and I was filling this out. And let me just give you an example of, first off, sorry, I'm a little tired today, but let me give you some examples of executive function skills that they use. They have response inhibition, so the ability to decide to hold back and not respond a certain way. Emotional control, task initiation, ability to start your task. Organization, goal-directed persistence, the ability to continue working on a goal. Metacognition, that is the big picture. Working memory, holding things in your mind over multiple moments and over a longer amount of time to work that problem. Sustained attention, planning or prioritization, time management, and flexibility. Now, again, you may talk to a different practitioner, a different type of questionnaire, and they may label it differently. But these are great because when I began doing the questionnaire, first off, I could see, and I did my own, the parent one, I could see, oh, wow, yeah, this is right. These are areas I do struggle in. And then the ones that I was excellent in, which some of them was flexibility and metacognition, it was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like, yes. And what I love about this process as well is that there can be these like, I'm really good at this. And there may not have been a moment where maybe your loved ones had that realization that their mind has a good ability to do certain executive function skills. And that can be so mood boosting and encouraging. Now, also when I did this for my children, I was really blown away. I naively thought like, oh, they're going to be pretty much the same because I already had inkling about a diagnosis. So my thought very naively was, oh, they're all from the same family, same parents. So yeah, not the case at all. They were not the same. In fact, my two oldest were almost the exact opposite. And once I did this questionnaire and I began identifying their strengths and the areas they have time to grow in, it blew my mind because I began seeing how one child, task initiation, they were like on top of it, like so good at that. And it showed up in the ability, like we're going to be going, and they were able to get their backpack together and their shoes at that time in their age of development. And my other child, it took years just to get the lunch bag process down pat, like getting the lunch box put it into the lunch bag, get the ice pack, put it into the backpack. Like that whole process took years to get down. And so when I began realizing, this is what helped me too, is that I could see their unique abilities and my frustration over why can't you do X, Y, and Z, your brother does, or why can't you do ABC, your sister does. I was able to drop that because I understood now. I understood why my one child, the metacognition, the big picture, their world was a gargantuan universe. Like they just saw so much. But because they were seeing so much in the universe, they had such big connections that they were making. Oftentimes they miss small details. And their sustained attention was difficult for them. But for another one, organization, it was interesting. The one who was really good at task initiation, that one struggled in the beginning to take a project, a big project, which metacognition would come into this, and break it down over a 2-month period. And the second edition really focuses on this as real life stories, and those were so helpful. Again, I really felt seen because there wasn't as much focus on the diagnosis as it was the skill needed to do the job. And when I began reading these real life stories, it helped me to figure out how to tackle problems. So one of them, one child had a big project they had to work on, and there was multiple steps. And I would sit down with that child and say, and this is again going back many years, but we need to take this big project and let's work backwards. This is when it's due. These are the main tasks. Let's put this down on the calendar and when you will do each of these tasks. Because that actually was part of the project, which I'm so glad they did. The first time I spent 45 minutes and they struggled putting down the due date and then getting to the next step, which was what is one big milestone that needs to be done, just identifying it, figuring out what will be the first big step. 45 minutes of conversations and frustrations and meltdown. And I was observing, being patient, trying to understand. Met again a second time and reading the book, breaking it down to like, we're only going to talk about this first step. I realized that I had to break it down into smaller steps. And that one was about 40-minute conversation, lots of frustration, but decreased. The second time we met, it was 30 minutes. And again, I kept working that problem smaller as I got feedback from them and as I saw where their suck point was. I was able to break it down. Now, this is fascinating. I have done this process with them multiple times over the years. And the first couple years, mama needs a mocha. Let's just say that. It was really intense, and staying patient and understanding their roadblocks and their lack of flexibility in this because it seemed so hard for them. When I kept my patience and my compassion and understanding why this was so hard, my child, who was excellent at task initiation, could not figure this out. Now where they're at, they are breaking down major things into smaller steps and planning out, and they're using a planner, all because they were willing to stick with it with me, walking through this process of how do we plan. So that's just an example of what I really love about the stories they have in here. It gave me ideas on how we can work through stuff. Now, I want to take you through a very simple example that we all can identify with. Brace yourselves, ladies. Laundry. Laundry. Maybe you are aware of this. Maybe yourself, you're neurodiverse or you have executive functioning struggles, but laundry itself requires so many executive function skills. For example, first, you need to gather all the laundry. Big picture there, where is your laundry? And if there's not a process for you to put your laundry in a laundry basket, then you have to go search and rescue for the dirty socks and everything. You have to gather it all together. Then there's a sorting process that needs to happen. And the sorting process requires sustained attention. And you need to be able to separate and make these starting the task, but also organization. There's tons of executive functioning skills in laundry. Once it's organized, you need to plan when are you going to wash, because when you wash your clothes, you want to put it into the dryer as soon as possible to prevent wrinkling, and you want to take it out of the dryer. So the thought is like, well, I'm going to get the wash started, but you're going on a 2-day trip. That's a problem, right? Ask me how I know that one. So then it's put it in the washer and then in the dryer, taken out of the dryer. Again, a lot of different tasks where you need to be persistent. You need to keep the working memory somehow reminding you that you are doing laundry. You need to fold it up and you need to put it away. There are so many tasks. Laundry, I feel, really hits almost every single executive functioning skill out there. So if your spouse struggles with this may explain why. Now, I realized when I read through this book, I had this epiphany. And I realized, oh my goodness, there's so many life skills in the world that require all these executive functioning skills. And my kids need to be able to do all of these when they are on their own. When I release them out into the great big world, whenever that happens, they need to do all of this. And they need to be working a job and getting their groceries. So I realized I need to begin some of these tasks much earlier than other people would have done in their family, because they need time to be adding in, how do I figure out my laundry? And oh, my stuff is musty. We left it in the wash machine. All these different eureka moments, they need to experience those, along with you need to pack for a trip. So when do you have to wash your laundry to be ready for the trip? And then starting jobs and all these different things that intertwine. So at the very young age, the older ones I started a little bit later, but my youngest was about 6 years old when I began the process. I started very simply. So if you take all the different skills with laundry and if you break it down, you can look at which ones do my child struggle in, and I am going to carry part of those tasks, and the part that they're good in, they're going to hold that. So for example, it may be your child struggles getting all their laundry into the basket. It never arrives there. Okay, you're going to do that. Once you get it in one spot, they're able to sort it and then put it into the wash machine. You're putting the detergent in there yourself, and then you're showing them how to start the button. Maybe they're there helping you with the moving it from the wash machine to the dryer. Again, sometimes just doing this process with them over and over again, they get the rhythm of it and it becomes easier because they remember doing it with you, especially when you can make it enjoyable versus, why haven't you done this yet? Which I've had my moments, but when you can make it just enjoyable and like, especially say, hey, that was really great what you did. Good job remembering. But walking through the process, and maybe they can wash and dry it. They can get it out, but folding it and putting it away, that is a struggle. So I found my ways where I would delegate and outsource part of the process and slowly give over more of the steps to them. And now my kids do all their laundry themselves. And sometimes they do forget it in the wash machine and it does smell musty. And then they had that learning moment. And so I need to stop, quote unquote, momming, momming. I realize there's things that I am momming all the time. I'm making that into a verb, everyone. And I need to allow natural consequences for them to learn. And that's how our executive functioning skills do grow, is through these, oh, I didn't realize if I don't take my laundry out of the dryer, it can be all wrinkly and not ready for my day at work. Okay. And they may have to have that experience happen 10, 15, 20 times before they finally get, I don't like this. And maybe for them, that connection won't happen for a long time. But at least they're learning to do their laundry. And this is applicable to groceries. I've done this with my kids with groceries, where I take the grocery list and I divide it up and I say, you need to go into the grocery store and find these items. And you need to, and I've even given them a chance of, if you can find a way to save money, I will give you some of that change back. For example, if there's a different item that we can buy from a different brand and they figure that out, like they get some of that money back. It doesn't happen too often, but the point is they know how to go into the grocery store. They know how to look for the items, find it. They're able to put it into the cart. They're able to navigate the store itself. And if I throw in can you go pick up this item in aisle number 5? They can be flexible enough because they've walked through the store. They're familiar with it. And the next step that we're working on is planning meals. And they've done a little bit of this, but specifically to the point of going to the grocery store, you're given money, you're going to plan the family meal, and you're going to make the family meal. They have made meals, but we've never put the whole process together. So you can see how you can break this down. But first, I really suggest is just doing a questionnaire. Know what your weaknesses and strengths are, because that gives you compassion. And when you can see your spouses or your kids, their executive functioning skills, and see where they're stronger and not as strong in, it changes, it takes out the terms autism, ADHD, and it really looks at how do we function. And you may discover that your kids may be better at some things than you are, and delegate that one. Delegate certain things to them that they are able to do, and they do really well. And then praise them. Praise them for what they have done. And for the areas they are not good in, and I've done this with all my kids, but there's one specifically where I have this phrase that I say to them. You're going to figure this out. You're going to get it, especially when it is the 30th time that they forgot something and they feel like a failure. And I have this in my heart, and I keep saying, you're going to figure this out. You're going to get it. I don't know when, but I will be there to see you when you figure this out. You're going to get there. Encouragement before they've achieved it is powerful, my friends. It is so powerful to them when you can encourage them to see that this is possible and doable. Natural consequences, yes, they do come up, but helping them to see how they are able to get through to a level that they're able to function in life. Not everyone has to be stellar in all these executive function skills. No one is. And anyone who says they are, I really doubt it, because you can't be excellent in all these executive function skills because of how much brain power it requires. But we can develop skills to help us with what we're not as strong in. We can develop coping mechanisms. We can develop behaviors. We can find ways that we can task switch with others. So for example, if one person is better at laundry and another person is better at grocery shopping, and they can find ways to trade task or parts of the task. Maybe unloading the groceries is really difficult for some people because there's so much sorting and organization that goes on. But for someone else, that's easy peasy. This can really open up the whole world for your family. When you look at challenges from this standpoint, especially with emotional control and response inhibition, that can help them see, oh, this is something I really need to work on. And especially when they say you have things you have to work on too. Again, it levels the playing field, and I love that so much. I hope this gives you another tool in the toolbox to use with your family. Again, the Smart But Scattered, you're looking at the questionnaires they have in there, reading through to understand executive function skills, doing the questionnaires, and then using all the different guides and practical advice they have in working through very common everyday problems. Thank you again for being here today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Hey, thank you for joining me today. I pray this episode gave you encouragement to take one small step. If so, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to help other women find this show. By the way, if you're loving this conversation and want more encouragement like this, join my email list at bit.ly/, bit.ly/myselfcare. That is bit.ly/myselfcare. I have a planner launching soon that will help you put all this into action in your own life. I look forward to chatting with you again next week for another episode.